Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Cars Reading Skills workshop as part of our Jack Westin MCAT podcast. As always, my name's Molly. I'm joined by Jack Westin himself, and we're going to go through one of our Jack Westin daily Cars passages. I absolutely love doing these sessions with you, Jack. We have so much fun. And ultimately, we're going to go through our Jack Westin daily passage called Bach's Fugue. This is the daily passage that goes through, or that was posted on November 12th. We'll have the link for you in the description as well if you're not happening to listen to this on November 12th. But if you are, you could always find it on our homepage. We post new science passages, new cars passages, and new science question sets every single day. So lots of, for free, lots of amazing open access free MCAT prep. So we're going to go through this passage sentence by sentence. We'll talk about what is most important to understand from each paragraph. And of course, we'll reflect on what the main idea is, which, as you always say, Jack, is where most of the questions come from.
Right, right. No, definitely a big part of MCAT cars for sure.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I mean, this is a pretty fun passage. I know we were just talking about it. It's scary on the surface, I think, but I don't think it's too bad. What do you
That's a
think?
typical card passage. I mean, the typical cars passage is on a subject or topic you know nothing about, or they hope you know nothing about.
Yeah.
And that's actually a good thing because if you bring in outside knowledge, you may actually create a bias that you don't even realize you're creating that could alter the way you read the passage or answer the questions. So I think it's an advantage to come in not knowing a lot about the topic. Now, for me, I don't know about you, Molly, but I don't like reading music passages because I'm not really big on instruments and music, but I mean I like listening to music, but understanding the little details here and there about different kinds of compositions and music in general is not exactly like the number one thing I do on my free time, right? And so
Yeah.
if you read this, you're gonna feel a little shaken or intimidated by the topic, right? Because it is so esoteric, meaning you do need, kind of feel like you need to be an expert, but you don't actually. You don't need to be an expert to understand it. You just need to have an open mind and listen. Listening is everything. So
Mhm.
I'm excited to read this because, when we go through this, you'll see how even if you know nothing about the topic, you'll be able to pick up on the most important parts of the passage that can help you answer the questions.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, what a wonderful introduction. Let's go ahead and hop in. Okay, so like we said, we're going sentence by sentence. Let's start then with sentence one of paragraph one. It says the extent to which Bach's fugue number 22 in B flat minor expresses a religious devotion is open to debate, but that it expresses devotion to something is beyond debate. Okay, I feel like that first part of the sentence, Jack, was exactly what you said. Of like, this just feels like I should know what all of these things are. Um, I bet Bach's Fugue number 22, that sounds like it's maybe like a song or a composition, and we get the key, B flat minor. Do I care? Probably not. But this Bach's Fugue is devoted to something, maybe religion, maybe not, but again, it's devoted to something. Um, and
Yeah,
we'll probably explore that in the passage.
yeah, exactly. So anyone who reads this in a test setting, the initial reaction is, "Oh crap, I know nothing about Bach or Bach's fugue." I mean, maybe there's like a music class we took in like middle school that talked about Bach or
Yeah.
Mozart or whatever, but like this is not something that like comes top of mind, right? And so it's
Hmm.
okay, that's fine. But even if you blurred out all of that and you just said the extent to which Bach's music, forget fugue number 22 and B flat minor, just music, right? Just
Hmm.
literally etch that out and think music expresses a religious devotion. So devotion to religion is open to debate. That means we don't know if that's actually true. We don't know if this music that Bach created was really devoted to music, but that it expresses devotion to something is beyond debate. So, I mean, that's kind of catchy, right? I like that part.
Hmm.
Where regardless whether it's religion or not, it's there is some sort of devotion. There's some sort of something that's moving Bach to write this, right? And so that's all you need to know. It does open it up to religion. Maybe we're going to talk more about it. But ultimately, this is just introducing the composer, Bach, the music itself, and what's happening to the music, right? How we look at how we interpret the music. And that's it.
Love it.
All right.
Awesome. Well, let's build on that. Let's see what sentence 2 gives us. It says the evidence is found in the musical signature with which Bach may have signed this fugue as he did with the C sharp minor. Okay, this it sounds like we're saying the evidence is found. Probably evidence of the devotion, but to be honest with you, the rest is a kind of a question mark. Okay, I don't know why this musical signature supports the idea of devotion. There's something about evidence, but I think this feels very specialized in terms of, musical knowledge.
Right.
Some musical signature, it seems like we're supporting the devotion, but I'm not taking much from this.
Right. There's not a lot to take, and there's some evidence for devotion
Yeah.
found in It's not an actual signature, right? Musical signature kind of means like the characteristic, the way it was written.
Mhm.
It's not that easy to read, and it kind of seems consistent with what we've been talking about. So I would just keep going, hoping that things will click, which they ultimately always do for cars passages. Like the something will click in each paragraph for the most part. But that's definitely not the sentence that clicks.
Yeah. Let's try the next one. Bach's name is found in the alto voices or voice of measures 58 to 59. Oh, okay. So do they literally say Bach's name? I don't know if this is literal or like theoretical or metaphorical, but like
Yeah, maybe it
that,
is. Yeah.
is it a literal signature? I mean, not a physical signature, but do they actually say Bach's name?
I have no idea. Maybe now I'm changing my mind. Maybe it is his actual signature, but whatever it is, there seems to be something that gives us evidence
Yeah,
for some sort of devotion. Let's keep reading and see where it goes.
agreed. It was clearly a personal fugue to him, whether it was personal in terms of his religious devotion or personal in some other more mundane way. Okay, so this we're kind of bringing back in, it might be religious, it might not be, but that first part, that is new. It's clearly a personal fugue to him. So it's not just, oh, there's some element of devotion. We don't really know what it is, religious or otherwise. This particular fugue number 22 in B flat minor is personal fugue for Bach or to Bach. That's probably the only thing. And again, that kind of makes sense given the fact that Bach's actual name is found in the alto voices. Like it's very literally personal if it's true that the name is part of it. So I'd track that as well. So
I
two
think
ideas
this is,
here.
yeah, I think this is the most important idea because it's so direct, it's so clear. It was clearly a personal fugue to him. The rest is not that important because it's saying we don't know if it's actually religious or not, whatever, but it is a devotion that's personal, that's deeply personal, right? And
Yes.
they kind of use an example. This Bach's name is found in the alto voice. I don't know what the heck alto voice of measures 58 through 59 are. It doesn't matter as long as you know that there was something Bach's name associated with it, whether it's an actual signature or not. Again, I'm not too clear on that, but that kind of gave us evidence. I can't kind of gave us this idea that yes, there was devotion, specifically personal, right? Something personal. I think that's something we never really talked about, and definitely would keep track of.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, let's look at paragraph number 2. Even those who did not think Bach's fugue contains religious symbolism should agree that the stile antico or antique style of measures 58 and 59 itself held a profound spiritual significance for Bach. Okay, so we're kind of coming back to this. You might think it's religious, you might not. But this sentence is really powerful because it's saying even if you don't think that this is incredibly religious, right, or religiously symbolic, even if you don't think that, you should still agree that this particular portion, 58 and 59, have this spiritual significance. Okay, the stile antico has spiritual significance for Bach. That's ultimately the argument. But again, the author is saying, even if you don't think that this is inherently religious, you should still think this. That's pretty powerful.
Yeah, that's sort of like the devotion stuff, right? But it's devotion
Hmm.
that's more personal, not necessarily
Hmm.
religious.
Yeah.
So, and then stile antico. Okay, so if they say or, that means that also means antique style. So
Yeah.
something antique style, stile antico, has spiritual significance.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. His reverence for the antique style was described by Carl Philipp Emanuel, Bach's son, who indicated that his father admired music that was, quote, complex, serious, and profound, end quote. So we're talking about the antique style. So that's the stile antico. And it sounds like Bach's son is supporting this idea, right? That he has this spiritual significance or this profound appreciation for this antique style. So,
Yeah,
is this a name we're tracking, Jack? Carl?
I would because this person is brought up to agree or support the point that was mentioned prior, right?
Hmm.
And so in this case, this person, Bach's son, which is kind of interesting that they don't share the same last name. Uh,
Yeah.
who knows why? That's something I would GPT for like probably 5 minutes, but it's not. We could talk about it. We could do that later. Essentially, just know that the author brought up Bach's son to prove their point that yes, this kind of measure 58 through 59 was profoundly spiritual, not necessarily religious, because the author is doing a good job creating a distinction between religion and spirituality, right? Most religions are spiritual, if not all of them. But in this case, the spiritual significance is separated from religion. And so just knowing that stile antico or antique style is spiritually significant and supported through Carl Philippe Emmanuel is good enough for us.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's look at our third paragraph. Ooh, and we're starting with a question. I love it when we do this. It says, why did Bach admire the complex and profound but old-fashioned style? I love it when we get questions because I understand why the author would put a question, right? This is obviously not a conversation in a literal sense. The author's not putting in this question because they expect you to verbally respond. What they are doing when they ask a question is trying to get you to think about it, right? They want you to, stroke your beard and think, why would you like this? Right? And ponder it. Probably they're doing this because they're about to tell you their thoughts and they want you engaged enough to hear it. So if they go on and answer their own question, which, most of the time they will, they throw that question in there first so you're ready for it, right?
Right.
That second, the answer becomes more important because they posed it with a question first.
Right. I love it too because it kind of sets us up for what we should focus on.
Yes.
Oh, we're focusing on the old-fashioned style. Why did Bach like this old-fashioned antique style? We already know that it was this old-fashioned style was spiritually significant. But why was he
Mhm.
admiring it? Like what led to this spiritual significance? Okay.
Yeah. Okay, there is reason enough to be found in the idealized counterpoint that the stile antico represents. Okay, again, it sounds like we're setting up the reason, but I don't know what the idealized counterpoint is. It sounds like the idealized part is describing this antique style or the stile antico. Maybe it's different from the rest. It's a counterpoint. I don't think this is really that clear. I wouldn't spend a bunch of time diving in deeper. Um, but again, it sounds like we're on the road to get our answer to this.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's just kind of filler, right?
Yeah.
Nothing too important here.
Okay. But I believe that another reason, albeit circumstantial, can be found in a traumatic personal loss that Bach experienced at the age of 10. Okay, this is a profoundly important sentence for several reasons.
Right.
Okay, we started with there's a reason. Okay, we started with a question. We said there's a reason, although the rest of the sentence was confusing. And then we got but. And we already know, Jack, you've mentioned in previous episodes, when we see but or yet or however or something like that, right? We talk about this in our cars course. Your ears should perk up. You should be listening close because they're about to describe an alternative idea. And typically whatever comes after the but is what they care the most about. And then it's but I believe.
Oh, yeah.
That's that's like two incredibly important phrases or but and I believe right back to back.
I know Christmas is not, for another couple months or a month and a half, but I mean, this is as good as it can get. This is like the best present you can get right here. Right? Because
Yes.
it putting a contrast word along with the author's opinion. Author's opinion is when they use the word I or my or myself, because you know exactly what the author is about to say. But again, the whole point of this is finding the author's opinion, right? And usually it's not that clear. It's usually you have to like kind of dig, but this isn't there's no digging here. It's very superficially in front of you. So
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. And I love that they said, albeit circumstantial, because if you needed evidence that this is an argument, there you go. Like they said it's a belief that already should trigger this is an argument, but they just said the reason is circumstantial, meaning it's not a guarantee, it's not a fact, right? It's like three little presents in one
Right,
sentence.
right.
This is an argument. It is critically important to the author. We know that for several reasons. Okay, so what is this argument that we care so much about? It's that a reason for why we like the old-fashioned style is part of this personal loss, okay, at a young age. They're probably going to go into what that looked like and why this old-fashioned style is tied to this loss. But again, we want to hold on to this sentence that is very, very powerful.
Right. So connecting it, like you said, why did he really admire old fashioned? Because of some sort of loss. I feel bad for him. At 10, I
I
can only
know.
imagine what he went through. Hopefully it wasn't too bad, but let's keep reading and see.
Yeah. When his parents died,
Oh, yeah.
young Sebastian was cast upon the care of his older brother, Johann Christoph, a student of the great contrapuntist Johann Pachelbel. I don't know what that contrapuntist is, but I feel for Bach in that sentence. And really, this is just here to illustrate the loss. We haven't tied it to the music yet, but this is the traumatic personal loss that Bach experienced.
Sebastian is Bach, right? Because it
Mhm.
says young Sebastian.
Yeah,
And it says when his parents died. So we know it's Sebastian is his first name. Okay, sounds good.
yeah,
And yes, Johann Christoph was a student of Johann Pasch. I mean, that seems like there's a lot of going on. There's a huge story going on,
yeah,
but you have to keep track of it, right? So far, it's not too difficult to pay attention to because there's only three names. But try
yeah,
to understand and visualize what's going on, right? Imagine Bach kind of looking up to his brother, Johann Christoph, and Johann Christoph is a student of this other teacher, Johann Pachelbel. So let's keep saying, let's keep trying to read the story and understand why he might have actually favored this antique style, right? Because
yeah.
it's not, it's giving us context, but it hasn't explained it exactly.
hmm Okay, while in Christoph's home, the younger sibling was exposed to the counterpoint of the South German tradition. Okay, I don't know if South German tradition has anything to do with the Stile Antico. They have said counterpoint a couple times in contrapuntist. I'm wondering if those things are tied, but I really don't know what's going on yet. There's some sort of exposure that Bach is having. It sounds like we're making our way to reflecting about Stile Antico, but it's
Yeah,
not concrete yet. We cannot
right.
make assumptions yet,
Yes, yes.
especially with how complicated that sentence is. Okay, so he learned this style by copying works, most notably by Froberger and Curl. I don't know who those people are. If I was an expert in Stile Antico, maybe I would see this and be like, oh, there we go. There's our support, and I'm done. But I'm not. And you're not
Right.
expected to be. So let's see if our last sentence clarifies it for us. Okay, the child Bach sneaked into his brother's forbidden library and copied these works of Stile Antico by moonlight. Ah, Okay, so there we go. This is finally drawing us back to basically how the author feels that personal loss kind of inspired this love of Stile Antico. And so we really get this this image of this poor 10-year-old kid sneaking into his brother's library, copying down this music. So again, they're tying personal loss and this particular style of music.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the exact details of what's happening, it doesn't really matter as much as long as you know it kind of reminds him of his past, right?
Hmm.
Of his personal loss. I think that's all you really need to worry about. So Stile Antico recalls Bach's personal loss, right? That's kind of why it seems personal to him. And then we do have this example. We do have the author's opinion, right? The copying Stiliantico works by moonlight. I don't know exactly what that means either, but it's clear enough. Like he was doing something in a library, trying to copy music of some sort. That's
Hmm.
enough for us.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so that was paragraph 3. Let's take a look at paragraph 4. It says Bach's immersion in the Stile Antico continued 5 years later when he attended the Michelsschule in Lüneburg. I apologize if I butchered that. When he was, or where he was a treble in the choir. So we're continuing our interest in Stile Antico.
Yeah.
That's really it. Nothing really super concrete yet. Okay, of this experience, Michael Ledbetter wrote that the young Bach, quote, had access to one of the richest 17th century connections of polyphonic and figural choir or choral music in Germany. Okay, so we don't really get a new argument here. We're still kind of talking about why um, Bach found this personal relationship to Stile Antico, right? It's not talking as much about the personal loss anymore, but it's still talking about why it's significant to him, right? And we don't really get, it's not a new layer to the argument. It's just, or it's almost like more support.
It
Um,
is. That's all it is. But this time with who?
Ledbetter, yeah, new
Ledbetter.
person.
And it's interesting because this idea now kind of repeats reintroduced in this other paragraph, right? And that's something we've learned through these episodes, and also we discussed this extensively strategically in our courses, is how we find the main idea, right? The main idea is not some new idea that we come up with. It's an idea or ideas that have repeated throughout the entire passage. And in this case, this is repeating, right? This idea that Stile Antico recalls or helps Bach recall personal loss, or kind of is incorporated with Bach's personal loss, seems to be important to the author, or else why would they bring it up in more than one paragraph?
Hmm.
And so just knowing that, okay, in the previous paragraph, we were talking about the example of him going into the library and doing things there. And then here we're just supporting it through Ledbetter. And I would keep track of the support, right? The example, the person, but more importantly, I would keep track of what is it that they're supporting. They're supporting this idea that Stile Antico is sort of has some sort of relation to Bach's personal loss, and that's it. Okay.
Awesome. Okay, well, that was paragraph 4. So let's look at 5. And this whole paragraph is one super long sentence. So we might pause partway through if they give us a chance to breathe here. It says Christoph Wolff, though, has accounted for Bach's veneration of the Stile Antico by noting that it was able to preserve long-standing musical truths. And we've got a semicolon. I'm going to use that as a breaking point. We are now giving a different reason for why Bach had this personal relationship to Stile Antico. So maybe not just personal experience, the loss and the, schooling. Instead, it has a more, structural reason. It preserves long-standing musical truths.
Oh, wow. So could this be the more important reason why Bach used Stile Antico?
We're gonna we're gonna find
Maybe.
out.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, let's keep reading. But that's pretty concrete, and that's an argument. So this is specifically with Wolf, and it's, Steely Antico has some ability to preserve these musical truths.
And veneration, if you don't know what that means, you could probably guess, right? Bach's veneration of the Stile Antico, so probably respect or admiration. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And to your question earlier, do you think this is more important? I mean, we had such a direct statement of I believe that this
Right.
was the reason. So I don't know. We'll see if we continue to explain Wolf's perspective, but that personal loss was so powerful. That
Yeah.
sentence, like you said, Christmas came early, or whatever winter holiday or present gifting
Yeah.
holiday
Yeah.
you celebrate. It's pretty powerful. So let's see how in depth we talk about the preservation of musical truths. What does that even mean? It says he claims the Stile Antico is, quote, rooted in the unchangeable rules of harmony that have always existed, are existing, and will be so as long as the edifice and the principles on which it rests do not change. May music as a phenomenon change as it will.
Sounds like the same thing. Preserve long-standing musical truths, right? Just going more in depth on it.
Hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, it's all one sentence, but it is a separate paragraph. We should definitely track this idea that Stile Antico preserves musical truths. And with this individual wolf, we'll see if the author agrees or if, they're just bringing this in as a way to transition back to their own point. We'll just have to
Exactly.
find out.
Maybe it makes the author look a little bit more sane, right? And kind of like impartial
Yeah,
because they're at least exploring other people's opinions. But you're right. I mean, the author was really clear with I believe earlier, right? So I doubt they're going to change their opinion. But it's interesting to see other people's opinions.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And maybe multiple things could be true, but again, they kind of have to clarify that for us. We have
Right.
two more paragraphs, so we'll see what that offers. Okay, so here is paragraph 6. In his maturity, Bach returned often to the edifice of the Stile Antico. Okay, so it was significant to him. We kind of know that, but here the Bach is constantly returning to it. Again, to me, not really a new argument. It's just, again, illustrating how significant Stile Antico was to Bach. But
So,
this is later in life, more mature. That he would have considered its immutable rules to be a force countervailing losses experienced in his adolescence is not beyond the realm of possibility.
ooh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. What is making you go ooh about this sentence?
It sounds like we're going back to the personal loss stuff, right?
Yep.
So
Mhm.
I feel like, okay, now it's really clear. Like the author made their point, right? Is they really do believe it's because of this personal loss that Bach goes back to Stile Antico.
Yeah. I feel like there's a lot of distraction in this sentence, a lot of like cumbersome phrasing.
Right.
But so what exactly about this helped you pick up this is right back to the loss?
It says that he would have considered it immutable rules to be a force countervailing losses experienced in his adolescence is not beyond the realm of possibility. So what I'm getting out of this is like the author is saying, look, it's not crazy to think that his losses experienced as an adolescence and his adolescence is the reason why he goes back to Stile Antico. Right.
Totally.
The fact that it mentions adolescence, right? The losses experienced in it. That's the part that really got me going, thinking, okay, yeah, this is going back to that argument, right?
For sure.
Back to paragraph 3, back to paragraph 4. It's not
Totally.
clear and it's written in this like jargon way, right?
Yeah.
For lack of a better word. It seems like jargon, but it's the author's trying to debate themselves, right? Well, it would be tough to figure this out, but it wouldn't be crazy to think of it in this way, right? Okay, but I would love for it to clear it up. I mean, I don't expect anyone to really read that sentence and fully understand it, but at least understand that it's going in that direction again.
Yeah. And you're right. There's an anchor. The losses experienced in his adolescence, boom, that's his traumatic loss, personal loss at an early age.
Right.
And then once you kind of figure that out, if, the rest of the sentence, you're like, okay, well, probably the author believes this. And then you see is not beyond the realm of possibility. You can kind of reverse engineer it once you find your anchor. So yeah, sounds like we're back where we started. Okay, the next sentence says the stile antico preserved what Bach lost in his childhood. Here we are, like, analyzing the sentence before. Here's another gift.
Right. That's a good
Preserved what we
lesson.
lost.
That's a good lesson. Like it is important to read every sentence carefully, but if you're rereading it and being really very, very tough on yourself, trying to understand every little word, every little thing going on, you may miss the point in the very next sentence. You may get so tired, lose focus that you won't even realize that the next sentence just clears it up for us. Right?
Yeah.
And so it's sort of this blend of reading careful reading, but not to the point where it brings diminishing returns, right? Where you just keep looking at it and it doesn't give you anything more. And
Yeah.
usually, again, something we notice for cars, and this is why we do this with our daily passages, is they like to clear things up, right?
Mhm.
This is all written as if you're a high school senior and just finishing English. And so anyone who finishes high school should be able to read this and understand it. And
Yeah.
the points that we care about are the ones that everyone can understand.
Yes. I feel like that what you just said is incredibly applicable also even to this sentence. Like they like to clear things up. Our original argument was that personal loss is closely tied to his love of or his respect for or why it's so personal to him to have this antique style or stile antico. Like we know the personal loss is tied with his appreciation for stile antico, but this sentence it's very close, but I even think that there's something
Yeah.
um slightly unique here, and they're helping explain why those two things are tied, right? The stile antico preserved what he lost. It wasn't just like, he hears the music and it brings back the trauma of the loss that he experienced. It helps preserve what he lost. Like that's helping us clarify a little bit why personal loss and this music is so significant of a tie for him. It's very similar, but it's a slightly different layer, and I feel like it's
Yeah,
it's valuable.
it
It's more
is.
explanatory.
Yeah, and in from a outside perspective, they look similar, right?
Mhm.
And so that's why I'm thinking, oh, okay, great. I know it has something to do with childhood, and most likely you'll get the questions right if you just know that Stile Antico has some relation to his childhood, right? His adolescence and his loss in adolescencehood. But what you should really focus on is the more specific argument being made here, which you're absolutely right. The preservation, right? Stile Antico preserved what Bach lost in his childhood. That's deeper. That's way deeper and way more profound for us to keep track of and helps us understand it even better, right? That extra layer isn't always what we're looking for. We're not
Yeah.
looking for this more superficial layer, even though that's helpful. Try to go deeper with the argument. Always try to understand it to the best of your ability. And I think that's what you just did. So awesome.
Awesome. Okay. Its principles of counterpoint may have provided him with solace through the many personal losses that were his continual lot. Okay, so pretty similar, right? They comforted him basically, is kind of what we're getting at when he was going through loss. So it
Yeah.
preserves again what was lost for him. And then last sentence in this paragraph, Bach employed the stile antico in some of his most heartfelt reminiscences of his childhood, including portions of the B minor Mass and Klavier Übung series. So same thing, right? We're getting um, specific portions of presumably, musical songs or musical works. But again, this is representing heartfelt reminiscence of childhood. It's preserving what he lost in his childhood.
Right. And those examples, B minor mass and, the other thing that they mentioned,
See
Bong.
you.
Yeah, see you, right? Those are examples. Those are I don't know, music or parts of music that had this stilo antico kind of devotion, right? Specific devotion, right? This childhood reminiscence.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you don't want to write down the whole thing, BMM and CU, B minor mass clavier Ubung series.
Right.
There
Or
you go.
highlight them. You could highlight
Or
them as
highlight
well.
them. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. So it is more specific, even though it is technically similar, it's not exactly similar. It's new, right?
Yeah.
Preserved what Bach lost. So I would be even more specific with that. Okay, cool.
Yeah. It's just a new layer to an argument that we already understood,
Right. Right.
like putting together all the pieces.
Exactly.
Okay. In this fugue and in the C sharp minor, the stile antico is the medium for preservation of Bach's childhood losses through a dissonant but powerfully expressive interval. There it is again.
Yep. That's it. Yeah.
The preservation of the losses. Now
So
it's
if
C
so,
sharp
Molly,
minor, but
let's say I didn't catch that. Let's say I just understood the argument from paragraph three. Stiliantico recalls Bach's personal loss. Would I be okay? Will I be able to answer these questions and be fine? Or
honestly, yeah. They're so similar. I feel like, we've already established that his admiration for it was, profoundly spiritual and valuable. So I think you'd probably be fine. I do
I
think it's worth noting, but I think you'd probably have enough to reason through a lot of these questions.
I think that extra layer is the difference between a 129 and a 132.
Yeah.
That like you'll still do really well. Like you'll still get like above a 127. But if you want that, like I know there are students listening that are like, I'm Canadian or I
Yeah.
want to get into a top 20 school and I need to do really well in cars because Canadians, you need, cars is really important in
Yeah.
Canada. This is how, right? You have to really deeply understand all layers of an argument that's important, that the author cares deeply about. And so, yeah, I mean, yes, can you do this? It's hard, right? We can. Under test conditions, 9 passages, it's harder to do, right? So that's where practice comes in. That's where training comes in. But
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, and training in full sections as well. Little plug for a free resource we have. We do have multiple free CARS practice exams that are timed. They're 9 passages in a row. They're 53 questions. It's a full CARS section. So you're right. Doing this in one passage is already kind of tough, but 9 passages in a row is exhausting. Get practice doing 9 in a row, especially leading up to your test day. We've got full lengths as well to practice with, but even specifically, if you want to do 9 passages in a row in CARS, we've got those for you. Tons of free resources on our website.
Awesome.
Okay, this is in paragraph 7. It's our final paragraph. We've only got 2 sentences left of our passage. So in both cases, that interval rises between the second and third pitches of the subject. Oh, actually, thought that extended. All right. We have 3 sentences left, including that one. That one, though, we're not getting a ton out of it. It's now going back into the music. I already know what the argument about this region or this portion of the music is. So I'm just, along for the ride as they describe the intervals and the pitches, etc.
Long for the ride. I love that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I'm not going to ignore it, but I'm not, really trying to. I don't
Exactly.
know what these would sound like. So,
I'm not gonna
uh,
freak out now and just put my hands in the air and say I give up, right? Because like I
exactly.
already found the meat. I found the bulk of the passage and like the important stuff. This is all filler. This is all just continuation of the same thing.
Yeah. Especially that first sentence of this, where we specifically said Stele Ontico is the medium for preservation of childhood losses. That's exactly what we just said in the
Right.
previous paragraph.
Right.
Like exactly the same. So it's like you could expect that they're just trying to set up perhaps another example or just illustrating it, talking more about it. Okay, whereas the former fugue employs a diminished fourth, the subject of this fugue leaps the interval of a ninth, tenth enhancer. Okay, I don't know what that means, but we're going to do the best with it. Again, along for the ride. In one last sentence, this is the largest leap of any subject in the well-tempered clavier. All right. Didn't really get much else from this paragraph other than that first sentence.
Right.
Pretty strong anchor to what we said in paragraph 6. I think we're done. What do you think, Jack?
I think we are. I think we found the main idea, right? Specifically, it's this idea that Stile Antico preserved what Bach lost in his childhood.
Yeah.
And that's it. If you know that, you should be able to get most of these questions right now. I would keep track of what Wolf said, right? That it was able to preserve, Stile Antico was able to preserve musical truths. But that's very specific. And if I get a question on that, I know it's a paragraph 5 question. Usually what they're going to do with the questions is ask, whoa, which would the following would Wolf agree with? And
Yeah.
you should not pick the main idea in that case, right? Because Wolf is more focused on this idea of preserving long-standing musical truths. That's the idea that you should be focused on for that kind of question. But if the question was around, what does the author believe, or which of the following would the author might think is the best way to interpret Bach, then you pick the one that is more like the main idea, right? And that's
Yeah.
something we go over in our free session. So join us every week. One of these weeks where I teach a CARS session for free online on our website. And of course, we're going to dive into all of this stuff. So yeah, it'll be
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, those sessions are amazing. Completely free. Definitely join one if you haven't already. Sometimes I'm tempted to join just because I love listening to students and their questions and how
Yeah.
you can navigate cars and make things so simple. So, thank you for your genius in offering this through the podcast to our students. I hope all of you listeners enjoyed. Come see us. We do these every week in our Cars Reading Skills workshops, and we've got a ton available still on wherever you're streaming podcasts. So have a wonderful rest of your day. And we hope to catch you in the next one. Bye, everyone. Happy studying.